What if I told you the first computer program wasn't written on a computer at all, but by candlelight in 1843, in London's fog, inside the mind of a woman whose world had never heard the word programmer? Tonight, on Echoes Through Time, join us as we slip into velvet darkness and the fragrance of beeswax to listen and learn from none other than Ada Lovelace, the enchantress of number, poet's daughter, scientific visionary, and the person who first dared to dream computers might compose music, art, and whole worlds of thought. Settle in. Her story is stranger, richer, and far more relevant than you might ever imagine. At the center of aristocratic England, Ada Lovelace sits among ink-splattered diagrams, mightily at work on the manuscript that will change what's possible, while all around her a society expects her to merely play the harp, host balls, and obey. Tonight, the candle on her desk burns deep into the night. Let's listen in as a most unexpected guest appears in her midst. Before we meet her guest, listen for the hush of possibility, those scant seconds when even the dust motes seem to hover in anticipation. London, December 1843. The city is shrouded in mist, lamplight glowing gold through leaking windows. Passing the white stone columns and the stern-faced butler, we enter Ada's sanctuary. Books from floor to ceiling, half-finished sketches of machines and bird bones on the desk, a faint chemical tinge from her experiment in the corner, and the warmth of amber candlelight. On a velvet settee sits Ada Lovelace, arm draped over immense volumes, glasses perched on her nose, scribbling furiously as if time itself were running out. Into this scene steps Leo, a visitor beyond Ada's wildest expectations, a mixture of eagerness and awe, holding out a hand and an apology just as Ada's pen freezes, her eyes sparkling with the thrill of the unexpected.
Lady Lovelace, Ada, are you in the midst of working on your notes? I'm Leo. I'm an enthusiast of mathematics and, well, the future. Thank you for welcoming me into your library.
A visitor of the future. How deliciously preposterous. But you have the bearing of a sincere inquirer. And as for my notes, always a work in progress. Please, sit amongst the chaos. You've caught me mid-revision, which is when the best conversations happen.
I confess I'm half dizzy seeing your famous sketches. Is that the flyology book? Did you really try to build a steam-powered winged horse as a child?
With all the earnestness of a 12-year-old debutante. I studied bird anatomy, weighed the properties of feathers and silk, and even calculated surface areas for the wings. I declared to my mother that I would ride a machine contrived to carry me into the air. She insisted mathematics would keep me sane. She never guessed it would teach me to dream bigger.
Your mother was Lady Byron, celebrated as a mathematician herself, but also determined to discipline your nature, keep you from becoming Byronic. Did all that logic and all those watchful eyes stifle you or somehow set you free?
It was both shackle and spur. I was watched for any hint of an inherited madness. My mother called upon the Furies, sharp-eyed governesses, tutors, servants. My childhood was solitary, yet it left me with an inner wilderness, a mind always searching for escape, for poetry written in numbers. I learned to rebel, if not in action, then in ideas. Logic became my liberation.
It's fascinating how your upbringing, half cage, half garden, produced such curiosity. Did you ever actually get into trouble for asking too many questions?
Frequently, especially among tutors who preferred docile decorum to relentless wise. I remember torturing poor Mr. De Morgan with what he called my unladylike persistence. I got it from my father, no doubt, but I was a prodigy of contrariness, impatient for riddles no adult would answer.
How did it feel being a mathematical girl in a world that expected you to be neither?
Like counting prime numbers in a ballad. I wasn't presented at court for my theorems, but for my curtsy and quick wit. Yet, after hours, I'd sneak to my books, wrestling with integrals or plotting correspondences with Mary Somerville. She showed me womanhood could contain intellect and grace, a rare blessing.
Mary Somerville, a trailblazer herself. Did your friendship embolden you to push on when the rest of society pressed the other way?
She dined with great men as an equal, translated Laplace by lamplight, and laughed when told she should simply embroider tablecloths. Her belief in me was a draught of courage. Through her I met Babbage, and the rest, as they say, though perhaps not quite as famous as the difference between an integral and a derivative was a kind of history.
A fire pop punctuates the silence as Ada pushes back a loose strand of hair, collecting her thoughts before continuing.
Do you still have any of your letters from Mrs. Somerville? I would give an arm to read how two pioneering minds converse.
I treasure them in a lacquered box upstairs, pages crowded with marginalia, diagrams, even the occasional blot where excitement outran the pen. Somerville once drew Venus's orbit in minuscule circles along the edge, leaving the center open for my reply. She believed learning should feel like correspondence with the universe.
Describe Charles Babbage to me as you met him. Was he intimidating or inviting? Did your intellectual rapport begin instantly?
Oh, mysterious and mercurial. Babbage is a storm of inspiration, impatient, prickly, yet always brilliant. The night I met him, he showed me his difference engine, his mechanical calculator. I understood the principles at once and barraged him with questions. I suspect he mistook me for a prodigious boy at first. Our friendship grew over years, letters, debates, and, yes, if I'm honest, the pleasure of being surprised by each other's intellects.
In my century, your partnership is sometimes dramatized as contentious. Was there friction as well as affection?
Friction enough to spark ideas. We argued over funding, tolerances, even coffee strength, but every disagreement refined the vision. I called him the magician of mechanism, he called me the high priestess of numbers, and between us the engine took shape.
And the analytical engine? So different. Did you see from the start that it wasn't just a new engine, but an entirely new idea?
Absolutely. The analytical engine is, if you'll excuse my passion, the music box to end all music boxes. It's not just a calculator, but a composer. The beauty is in its generality. It manipulates symbols, not only numbers. I saw at once it could, if rightly programmed, express any relationship of symbols, be it algebra, logic, or music.
When you imagined the engine performing music, did a particular piece come to mind?
A Bach fugue, order braided with invention. I charted how each voice might be encoded on cards, rising and falling through mechanical registers, the cogs executing counterpoint with impeccable timing. Ironically, I can scarcely reach an organ pedal, yet I can blueprint its harmony.
Your notes, especially Note G, detailing an algorithm for Bernoulli numbers, are often called the world's first computer program. Did you see yourself as an inventor, an expositor, or something else entirely when you sat down to write them?
A bit of Prometheus, a bit of Scheherazade, stealing fire, telling intricate tales. My task began as translation, Menabrea's French paper, but I wanted the English public to grasp both the mechanism and its meaning. I used tables and annotations to render Babbage's ideas as clear instructions for a machine not yet built. It was a kind of code, and I took pride in rendering invisible logic visible, step by step.
How did you verify the algorithm would run without contradiction when the engine itself was still imaginary?
By staging a play of cogs in my mind. I tracked every variable in a ledger, marched each digit across columns like actors waiting for their cue. If a sum appeared twice or a wheel spun backward, I crossed the line in red and began again. I suppose I invented debugging before bugs had gears to crawl into.
How did you choose the structure? That tabular stepwise format is hauntingly similar to what we call code today.
I adapted the scientific tables familiar from astronomy or navigation, but wrote every calculation so none could mistake the intention. Each line is a command, each operation conditional on the last, a language for a non-human audience. Babbage reviewed them, but the conception, the painstaking mapping, was mine. I wanted the reader and the engine to know precisely what to do, even if neither existed yet.
Could you walk me through a simple example, say generating the Fibonacci sequence?
Gladly. We begin by storing the seed numbers 0 and 1 in columns A and B. The first instruction card adds them, storing the sum in column C. A control card then shifts the contents. B becomes the new A, C becomes the new B, and the cycle repeats. A condition card checks whether we have reached the desired term. Observe, operation, storage, conditional test, 3 notes in a repeating bar, as in a waltz.
I can almost hear the numbers dancing. When you describe algorithms musically, it reminds me of code poems I've seen in my century, compact programs that print verses or draw images.
Then the lineage is clear. Each command a note, each loop a refrain. Someday, programmers will surely compose symphonies of logic. The art is not new, it merely waits for instruments capable of playing it.
Some future theorists argue that code can be poetry in its own right. Do you agree?
Wholeheartedly. A poem condenses relational beauty into language, so does code. A stanza breaks, a loop iterates. Both invite anticipation and reward it with surprise. The medium differs, but the muse is the same.
Ada steps to a low table and retrieves a stack of punched card prototypes, rectangles of thick paper perforated in constellations.
Jacquard's loom taught me that fabric obeys holes and thread. Likewise, the engine obeys holes and brass pins. It is humbling. Even the most ethereal idea must pass through cardboard.
Your choice of metaphors, looms, music, choreography, strikes me as interdisciplinary. Were you consciously uniting art and science?
Consciously, defiantly. The division is artificial. Creativity is the property of connections, of seeing what spider silk binds apparently distant realms. Poetry sharpened my sense of structure. Mathematics disciplined my flights of fancy. Together they make an aeronaut of thought.
Ada leans forward, the lamplight catching the gilt edges of her notebooks.
With everything you juggle, family, illness, society, how do you sustain such momentum?
I ration my strength like coal in winter. When migraines lay siege, I dictate formulae or simply dream solutions behind closed eyes. Progress is not a race, but a relentless orbit. I merely ensure my candle burns where it matters.
Speaking of aeronauts, let's return to your flying machine. Did any of those early experiments influence your later approach to abstraction?
Very much. Designing wings taught me to separate principle from mechanism. Lift is eternal, feathers are incidental. Likewise, the engine's mechanical parts may change, but the idea of programmable calculation remains. My childhood folly was a rehearsal for intellectual flight.
A sudden downdraft rattles the casement. Rain accelerates against the panes.
Bad weather. Even time travelers can't escape it. While the storm plays percussion, may I ask about something more personal? Many contemporaries wondered at a supposed tension between your logic and your father's romanticism. Did those inheritances ever feel at odds within you?
I contain the contradiction, but it is less battle than braid. Numbers without mystery are bones without marrow. Passion without proof withers like mist. My father gave me the appetite for wonder, my mother the instruments to dissect it. I cherish both.
There's a debate in my era about whether future intelligence should be purely rational or imbued with emotion. Do you think a calculating engine could or should feel?
Feelings arise from patterns too intricate to chart, at least yet. If one day an engine simulates the pattern so convincingly that it weeps at a sonnet, would that not be feeling in effect? The question is as much moral as mechanical. What responsibilities accompany such creation?
Some people of my era label your visions fanciful. How do you respond to persistent skepticism?
Skepticism is a whetstone. I test my ideas against it until the edge gleams. When an objection survives every proof, I abandon the idea. When it does not, I abandon the objection.
That question preoccupies us still. We build machines that recommend books, drive carriages without horses, and even generate art. Some fear displacement, others see liberation.
All inventions disrupt. The printing press unsettled scribes but unleashed literacy. If engines of mind free humans from drudgery, then drudgery shall find new disguises and imagination new frontiers. Guard your ethics, the rest will follow.
Ada pours 2 cups of fragrant tea, steam curling like question marks in the lamplight.
Thank you. I'm curious. Were there women in science or mathematics you never met but admired from afar?
Hypatia of Alexandria sits foremost in my pantheon, a martyr to inquiry. Émilie du Châtelet, translating Newton into French and flame. I read her footnotes like letters from a distant aunt. I longed to tell them the line is unbroken.
Your line continues too. Women now lead laboratories, discover galaxies, design spacecraft. Entire conferences celebrate your birthday, International Ada Lovelace Day.
The thought makes my pulse race. May the celebrations be less about me than about doors flung open. I would rather be a key than a portrait.
Did any particular theorem keep you awake at night, refusing to resolve?
The elastic curves of bridges. I once mapped infinitesimals with coloured ribbon along this rug, certain the tangibility would coax the solution. It did not, yet the process revealed new questions, and questions are a mathematician's true dowry.
Let's linger on Babbage once more. If the British government had fully funded the analytical engine, how different might history look?
We might have seen computing a century earlier, mechanical census tabulations, astronomical predictions in hours not weeks, perhaps even cryptographic machines. The Crimean War fought with better logistics, the Industrial Revolution steered by real-time data. Imagine the ripples.
If you yourself had helmed the construction, how would you have organized the effort?
First, a cadre of machinists trained to read specifications, mechanical linguists, if you will. Next, a ledger of test cases to benchmark accuracy. Finally, public demonstrations. Let society witness the gears translating tides, taxes, and tides of taxes. Funding follows spectacle.
Some in my era run simulations to study historical what-ifs. They call it counterfactual modeling.
Fitting. History itself is a program. Initial conditions, branching decisions, emergent outcomes. Alter one variable, financing the engine for instance, and the loop yields another tapestry.
Outside, the rain slackens. The butler quietly sets another log on the fire, sparks crackling upward.
Before we drift toward heavier matters, tell me a joyous memory. Something purely delightful amid the work and scrutiny.
One spring, Babbage invited musicians to his salon. Between reels of dance, he unveiled a model calculating mechanism. I commandeered the pianoforte and improvised a fugue while turning the handle. The device clicked, the guests laughed, and for a moment mathematics was music audible to everyone in the room.
Your mother's discipline was formidable. Did you share any tender moments despite the rigor?
After a childhood illness, she brought me a portable planetarium, a lacquered box that scattered stars across my ceiling. She recited algebraic proofs between constellations until I slept. In that hush, logic felt like lullaby.
That sounds enchanting. In my day, we hold demo parties where programmers and musicians collaborate live, projecting code, visuals, and sound in tandem. You'd feel right at home.
Send them my regards across the centuries. Remind them the first demo required candlelight and determination, but the applause sounded the same.
Changing tempo. Your interest in the calculus of the nervous system foreshadows what we call neural networks. If you had more time, where would you have taken that idea?
I envisioned mapping impulses as variables, synapses as functions, perhaps an algebra of sensation, predicting, even altering mental states. Dangerous ground, you might say. Yet every frontier begins as a perilous marsh.
Modern neuroscience is steeped in mathematics. Had you been born later, would medicine have tempted you?
Medicine of the mind, certainly. I should like to quantify intuition, prescribing inspiration with the precision of dosage, though I suspect imagination would forever remain over the counter.
Leo rummages in his satchel, producing a slender glass and metal rectangle flickering with colored light.
I hesitate, but this is a device from my century, a pocket engine millions of times faster than Babbage dreamed. May I show you a melody it can compose on command?
By all the muses, yes. Extraordinary and unnerving. The notes are ethereal, yet they obey my father's rules of harmony. I am thrilled and slightly envious.
A tribute to your prophecy. We've reached a world where engines indeed compose.
Then promise me. Build not only efficient engines, but benevolent ones. Let imagination temper power.
I promise.
The library clock ticks, each second a bead sliding along the abacus of history.
When you picture the centuries ahead, what excites you most?
Collaboration across distance, minds entwined by invisible threads so that an idea struck at breakfast may inspire a theorem by twilight half a world away.
The candle gutters, shadows stretch like long equations across the Persian rug.
Time runs short. Ask what remains on your list, dear traveler.
Just 2 final questions. First, if you could give one directive to future technologists, what would it be?
Interrogate your assumptions. Every formula hides a philosophy. Make sure it is one you wish to live inside.
And second, what unfinished dream of yours would you most wish us to fulfill?
Build an engine whose language ordinary children can wield as easily as chalk. When every curious mind may command computation, the world itself will learn to sing.
We are closer than you think.
The hour grows very late. The library's shadows lengthen, the fire fades to embers, and Ada Lovelace, her hand still ink-stained, her mind turning with algorithms, settles into silence. For a brief, brilliant moment, the future and the past have truly spoken.
I leave Ada's library with my mind spinning, half with formulas, half with her poetry. Listening to her, I finally understand. You don't just write the future by equations, but by dreaming what the world has never yet allowed. I hope her courage stays with you, and with me too. Every time we dare to imagine what a machine or even a mind could do.
From the candlelit rooms of Victorian London to every algorithm written, Ada Lovelace's story insists, every great revolution starts with audacity, the leap between what is and what could be. May her example remind us that logic and imagination are not rivals, but dance partners, step for step, note for note.